Hello, and welcome to today's Quick Plays video on the science of weak ace hands. These hands, also referred to as rag aces, consist of ace deuce to ace 8, suited and offsuit. In this video, we'll analyze how these hands hit flops, understand their playability, and use that information to recreate a preflop plan. For this video, we are going to use the tool Flopzilla. This is a paid piece of software that you can pick up from flopzilla.com, and I've done an extensive video using this software as well. I'll leave a link for that video in the description box. In Flopzilla, we can plug in a single hand on the left, and we will get a full breakdown on how that hand hits the flop on the right. So let's get to work. The term weak ace, or rag ace, encompasses a few categories. There are suited and unsuited ace-x hands, and then there are big and small ones. It's important to understand this since there's a difference between ace-7 off and ace-3 suited. Let's start by looking at a hand like ace-6 offsuit. When we plug ace-6 off in on the left, we see how it hits flops along the right. Notice that it smashes the flop with 2 pair or better only 3.5% of the time. So many players make the mistake of overestimating how often starting hands flop something huge, but you won't make that mistake going forward. Then we see ace-6 hit second or third pair about 12.5% of the time. It flops a couple of gut shots, almost no draws. It misses the flop entirely about 2/3 of the time. The last piece of the puzzle is the top pair, which ace-6 flops about 16% of the time. If nothing else, it's important to understand how the hands you play hit flops, as this knowledge can help you choose better lines pre-flop. If we switch over to a different ace-x, say ace-4 suited, we notice that things change a bit. Ace-4 suited smashes the flop with 2 pair or better 4.6% of the time, a 31% increase over the ace-6 off. It flops second or third pair about 14% of the time, and top pair 15%. But because it's suited, it now flops flush draws at 11%, and because it's connected, it flops a gut shot 12% of the time. We notice that overall these miss about 2/3 of the time, and catch varying hand strengths the other third. But the big issue is how these hands play when they do hit a single pair. When playing a weak ace, pairing our low card is usually going to be second or third pair. And while it's a weak pair on the flop, the turn and river will put more over cards up quite often. So our weak pairs aren't usually going to feel very comfortable post-flop, but what about when we pair our ace? Well, the issue still relates back to our other weak card, which now presents a kicker issue. If we have a hand like ace-5 suited and the flop comes ace-jack-6, are we really looking to create a big pot? Probably not. I say this, but then some players will get upset and say, well, what about those small suited ones? They have straight draw and flush draw potential. That's a fair point, but remember, we only flop a flush draw about 11% of the time, and that only improves to a made flush by the river about 1/3 of the time. And the gut shot? Well, you only flop one of those 12.5% of the time, and that improves to a made hand by the river even less often than our flush draw improves. Another issue with the flush draw element is that everyone and their mother can recognize 3 to a flush on the board. So while weaker players may pay you off the rare times you hit your flush, better players are less likely to give you the implied odds you really need. Always consider your opponents and their likelihood of paying you off, rather than just considering those pretty suited cards. At this point, you're probably asking yourself if you should even enter pots with these hands. To that I would say, weak aces should be played aggressively, far more often than they should be played passively. I rarely call raises with these hands pre-flop since they hit so poorly post-flop. If I do call, it's with a plan on how I can make money even the times I totally miss the flop. I do tend to limp suited ace-x hands behind from late position if there are multiple limpers, but that's about the extent of my pre-flop passivity with these hands. These hands perform much better with aggression. When you are aggressive pre-flop, you could pick up the pot immediately, or use your initiative to fight for the pot post-flop when you miss. This doesn't mean that we want to open raise every weak ace hand from every position, but looking to either raise or fold these hands is almost always better than looking to limp or call them. One last note is that these hands make excellent light 3-betting hands given the blocker, and even better light 3-betting hands if it's a baby suited ace like ace-deuce suited to ace-5 suited. For more on this concept, check out our other video on 3-betting with blockers pre-flop. The real goal of this video is to make sure you fully understand how these hands hit flops, and with that knowledge, you can make better decisions pre-flop when deciding if you even want to get involved in a hand. Due to the fact that these hands hit flops so weakly, and even when they flop pairs they are usually problematic, these are hands we should play rarely, and when we do play them, aggression goes much further than constantly playing them passively. Same as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, good luck and happy grinding.